The Detroit Pistons, another team who we expected to be in the cellars of the NBA. Okay, 3 major headlines for the Pistons. Cade's Rookie of the Year campaign, Jerami and Saddiq's consistency and steady improvement, respectively, and Killian Hayes' fit in the Detroit backcourt next to Cade and on the Pistons in general. So we're going to start with Cade, of course. He's the #1 pick. Probably, actually I don't want to say probably Rookie of the Year, but he is on the Rookie of the Year shortlist. He also started the season off pretty slowly, like a lot of rookies. Mainly it was just his inability to put the ball in the hoop himself efficiently, even though his assist numbers weren't as prolific as they were in the latter months of the season. The signs and indications of his potential as a passer were there early on, as they showed themselves midway to the end of the season. He was struggling to finish at the rim, he was struggling to use his size, and to really hit shots on the perimeter on tough defense. Though in December he turned a corner and was able to put a lot of that together. Month in and month out his efficiency would waver, but his confidence wouldn't. He stayed aggressive. Detroit was headstrong about Cade having the keys to the franchise, and I think he fully realized it and embraced it right before the turn of the new year. He's been really able to display his all-around offensive game. In my opinion, he's second on the Rookie of the Year ladder, right behind Scotty Barnes and ahead of Evan Mobley. Moving to Jerami Grant and Saddiq Bey, the two starting forwards on Detroit. First we're going to talk about Jerami. He was only able to play about half the year due to injury in December and then a calf injury in late March. At that point it just made the most sense to shut him down near the season's end. I was really paying attention to Jerami's output with the addition of Cade, and I was impressed. As a whole, his numbers were slightly down in terms of points per game, but his efficiency remained the same and his points per game only fell by 3 points. He was still the Pistons' leading scorer. Moving to Saddiq, he had a bit of a slide in efficiency from his rookie to sophomore season, though I still do think he improved his game. The dude was just taking almost twice as many threes per game, and defenses were a bit more aware of his ability as a marksman this year, so a little more focus from three-point land was on him. He was also taking a tad bit more of an initiative as a shot creator this year, especially with Cade and Jerami being both in and out of the lineup. Saddiq Bey played 82 games this season, but him taking initiative as a shot creator was a good indicator of his confidence level, that he thinks himself as a good, reliable source of shot creation, and that was evident by his 50-point game. Finally getting to Killian and his fit in Detroit, definitely if not an area concern, it was an area to pay close attention to coming into the season. Killian was a certified pass-first point guard coming into the 2020 draft. He wasn't adequately able to show his scoring capability, nor any outside shooting efficiency, so how was that going to mesh with Cade Cunningham? Throughout the season, there were moments where you'd say, wow, the Pistons could have two of the smartest, most talented young passers ascending in the game, in the same starting backcourt. There were times where the two's playmaking would enhance the offense, especially in transition. Also, there was more intrigue on the defensive end for these two. They form a very big backcourt, Cade being 6'6", Killian being 6'5", with also some added muscle over the offseason, and Killian just being a very good disruptor on the perimeter. But more often the case was how they really got in each other's way. When Killian's 3-ball fell back to earth, his off-ball presence was nil on the court with Cade Cunningham. And Cade, though most of his value comes with him on the ball, he actually has some off-ball value, especially when his 3-ball started falling midway through the year. But you're going to want the ball in the hands of Cade to quarterback the offense as much as possible. A lot of this led to Dwayne Casey making the decision to move Killian to the backup point guard position, which we'll talk about more later. Diving a bit more into the players themselves, the star is Jerami Grant. He's still Detroit's best player. He's their lead shot creator, versatile defender. His game actually was complemented by Cade's presence, and the stats support that. In 37 games with Cade Cunningham, he averaged 20 points per game on 44% from the field and 38% from 3. 10 games without him, those numbers fell to 15.5 per game on 36 and 35 splits. So there's a deal similar to Christian Wood that lies in Jerami Grant, him entering his prime, him being like on the last year of a very team-friendly contract. Is he possibly outside the Pistons timeline? Cade, his strengths lie with him being or having great size at the point guard position. He's 6'6", 6'7", really strong. He has like a Luka type build, though he's not as chubby as Luka though. Similar athletic level. Obviously his playmaking showed itself midway through the end of the season, and his shot creating confidence. His weaknesses kind of lie in his ball security. He turned the ball over quite a bit, which is expected as a rookie point guard, and his outside shooting consistency. It kind of wavered week in and week out, and I think that's really going to be the thing that determines his ceiling. I forgot to talk about this, but his size at the point guard position is also a strength on defense, as he's able to overwhelm smaller guards a lot and be very versatile in terms of defending multiple positions. Moving to Saddiq Bey, his strengths lie in his defensive versatility. He can guard pretty much any perimeter position, and he can guard the four, especially small ball fours, and of course his three-point shooting. I'm going to say his shot creation consistency is a bit of a weakness, though he's made strides to improve that part of his game, and he's becoming more confident of a shot creator. His efficiency from like mid-range pull-ups isn't the greatest, and his efficiency in terms of creating from three-point land wasn't the greatest, though he's getting more comfortable and confident in doing that. Evidently, that's going to be the main determiner of his ceiling. Moving to Isaiah Stewart, his strengths is, just him being a bruiser. He's a glass cleaner. He's one of the better rebounders, especially young rebounders in the league, and he's a great screen setter. I would never want to run through a screen of Isaiah Stewart. That dude is big and burly. Though his weaknesses are in terms of like post scoring, he's good at converting against switches, but when he has to go against like a center equally big as him or bigger than him, he doesn't really have the skill to score on them in the low block. And then finishing in traffic is also a bit of a weakness. When he gets a pass in the dunker spot and the defense collapse on him, he doesn't really have the finesse to finish through traffic or around traffic. Things that are going to really determine his ceiling, being a more of a presence from outside. He didn't have a horrible percentage from three, but he only attempted like less than one per game, so he still isn't really a factor from out there. Him being an undersized center in terms of height, adding that three ball could really help him out. And him just being more of a defensive impact. He's a solid defender. He's improved his positioning, and he's got good ability in terms of just switching onto guards and wings. But I just don't think his defensive impact was that strong this season, in my personal opinion. Though I only watched like 20 Pistons games. So lastly, we're going to talk about Killian Hayes a bit more. His strengths, his passing, his finishing, and his perimeter defense. His finishing was kind of on another level this year. On field goals attempted from 0 to 3 feet, he converted at a 74.7 clip, compared to last season where he struggled to finish at the rim. He finished at 44.4%. Improving that to 74.7% is kind of crazy. That percentage really rose towards the end of the year when he got moved to the backup point guard and was able to play in the second unit and be that lead ball handler in the second unit. Him having the ball in his hands and being that guy that the second unit looked to get offense, I think it lit a fire under Killian, and he was a lot more aggressive and determined at getting to the rim in the half court and especially in the full court fast break setting as well. So the weaknesses in Killian's game is his shooting, his shot creating, and consistent aggressiveness. He didn't really make a big improvement from three-point land this year. He is trying to work on his mid-range game, though his mid-range pull-ups from the elbow aren't very consistent. He's pretty good at finishing, or just confident in finishing with floaters between the rim and between the foul line, though his efficiency isn't great from like that floater range either, and that was something he was heralded for coming into the draft, his feel from that area. So he's going to have to get better from mid-range and in to unlock his scoring ability and to make things easier to open up his vision. So him just being a better shot creator, furthering his bag in terms of scoring the ball, and just being more confident and aggressive. Those are going to be the things that really unleash his ceiling. The other player that I want to talk about who isn't necessarily a prospect is Marvin Bagley. Because this was his 4th year in the league. He got traded from the team he was drafted by. But in that pickup for Detroit, he was an instant energy guy off the bench. 14 and 7 on good efficiency from the field. Like per 100, he was dropping 26 and 12. Like, he came in, played hard, cut hard, screened hard, finished hard. This was a really great addition for him, and he honestly became a fan favorite for Detroit. They were able, the fans were able to recognize how hard Marvin Bagley was playing. And I especially loved when he ran the center position. It made their offense a bit more snappy and quick and dynamic. In minutes with him at the 4 when Stewart returned to the 5, those were a bit dicey though. Looking to the offseason, starting with the draft, Detroit should have a pick between 1 to 7. Players for them to target are going to be Chet Holmgren, Jaden Ivey, Jabari Smith, and then the backup is going to be Benedict Mathurin out of Arizona. But starting with Chet, he's one of the best defensive prospects in the class, can be a really impactful shot blocker out the gate. I changed my mind. I think it's feasible for him to play NBA level 5 because, like I said, I think in the Houston Rockets vid, he was able to play against burly centers in college. So I think it's possible for him to play NBA level 5, but he is still going to have to put on some weight. The dude is 7 foot tall, but below the height or below the weight of 200. That's kind of ridiculous. He's going to have to put on some weight and strength, but I think he can come into the NBA and play the 5. And his fit on Detroit at the 5, I think he'll have a higher defensive impact than Isaiah Stewart, who's probably better suited as a high-level energy backup 5. His offensive fit with Cade is really appealing. That pick and roll / pick and pop game with Cade as a passer, that's really appealing and really enticing. And simply him spotting up as a 5 would enable a lot of opportunity for Jerami and Cade to get to the rim where they're at their best. Moving to Jaden Ivey. He's an extremely athletic combo guard. He's wired to score. He has a combination of elite top tier athleticism and a dynamic handle. He's improved and willing as a 3-point shooter from freshman to his sophomore year in Purdue. He's a good playmaker, drawing defenses and dishing out of drives. He's made some tough cross-court passes in Purdue this past season, which shows his passing vision and his passing talent. And honestly, he's a better backcourt fit next to Cade than Killian Hayes is. So Jaden Ivey would be dope in the backcourt next to Cade Cunningham. Next is Jabari Smith. This would just be a best player available pick because the Pistons are kind of loaded at power forward / small forward because they have Saddiq and Jerami. But I mean, if Jabari is there, you should take him. I think drafting Jabari would kind of guarantee a Jerami Grant trade, because if you're drafting Jabari, you have a top 3 pick definitely, and you're going to be putting a lot of eggs into the basket of Jabari Smith. You think he can be your 3 or 4 for the future. So I think if they did take him, that would kind of guarantee Detroit trading Jerami Grant sometime in the future. The question is, would you rather play him at the 3 or the 4? Because Jabari is more of a perimeter guy. He's like a tall, small forward. So for that reason, you might want to play him at the 3. But I think regardless, Saddiq Bey can play either one because he's that versatile. That defensive forward set would be pretty crazy. Crazy versatility, crazy on-ball capability. Jabari would bring more disruptiveness. But yeah, that would be a really, really intriguing defensive forward set. And another high-level shot creator to have in the starting lineup with Cade would be ideal. He's also a better floor spacer as he's legitimately one of the class's best shooters. So Benedict Mathurin as the backup prospect for if the Pistons got to pick between 5 or 8 or something, I don't know. Benedict Mathurin would be a cool guy to get. He's a prolific 3-point shooter, a high-level athlete. He's a great off-ball scorer, as he was really able to spot up and get open off the ball for 3-point looks, and just cutting in the half court off of passes from his fellow Wildcat players. He was a really good cutter. He's an ideal player to run in units with Cade because Cade is somebody that will spot Mathurin, who he was constantly moving on the offensive end. And I think Cade would be able to reward him and give him some good looks. So I think he's the ideal player to target in the 5 to 8 range. Looking towards free agency, Marvin Bagley is the main free agent for them. I think he'll command 7 to 10 million because he did a lot to really reestablish his value in the league. So he's not going to be a minimum guy. I don't think he's going to be making less than 5 million next year. I think 7 to 10 million is his price range. So looking at Detroit's free agency focus, they project to have around 38 million in cap space. The types of players they need a microwave scorer and an energy guy off the bench to really jumpstart their offense off the bench, because their offense off the bench had issues. They need a high clip 3-point shooter and a high defensive impact center. So the targets I have are Marvin Bagley, TJ Warren, Pat Connaughton, and Mo Bamba. I think they should bring back Marvin if possible. The fans loved him. He provided a lot of energy off the bench. He was able to score inside at a high level in not that many minutes, honestly. So I think they should bring him back. I think he provided a good fit in the pick and roll with Cade and Killian. As for TJ Warren, I don't think the man has played like more than 20 games in the past 2 seasons. But he is a bucket, he is a sniper. I think Detroit would be able to get him for relatively cheap because he hasn't been able to play that many minutes, games in the past 2 seasons. So maybe a 1 or 2 year deal, or a 1 year with like a team option for the second, would be in both parties' interest, so TJ can reestablish his value in this league. I think he'll be healthy going into next season. Pat Connaughton would be a good fit, around 6 to 9 million. Veteran, championship proven wing, a sniper, competes on the defensive end, high IQ veteran. That would be a good pickup for Detroit. I think Pat's going to be looking to, kind of cash out and get a big time deal, and Detroit has some money to throw out to a veteran like Pat Connaughton. Lastly, Mo Bamba. Now, I'm thinking Mo Bamba might be on the outs in Orlando, with Wendell being a better player and more suited to play the 5. I don't think the Wendell-Mo Bamba partnership at the 4 and 5 is going to work long term, so I think Mo Bamba could be on the move for a team that will pay him more than Orlando will be willing to match, and Detroit definitely could be one of those teams. Bamba would definitely provide a higher defensive impact than Isaiah Stewart because Bamba is a high-level rim protector, and he's a really good floor spacer from that center position. So Bamba could be a really dope pickup for Detroit. And in adding him, they wouldn't feel the need to add Chet Holmgren. If they wanted to add another high-level perimeter player, they can do so more comfortably in adding Jaden Ivey or Jabari Smith. Potential guys on the trading block for Detroit could be Jerami Grant. Whether or not he gets traded depends on what happens for the Pistons in the draft, honestly. Another guy could be Killian Hayes because next season will be his 3rd season in the league. His fit next to Cade hasn't been consistently great, so I don't know, he could be on the trading block. Moving into my predictions, I'm going to say, I have 2 of them. I'm going to say Detroit keeps Jerami Grant through the offseason, and I think they'll try to actually extend him because Detroit has been hovering in mediocrity and irrelevance for the past damn near 10 years. Like ever since Chauncey Billups got traded from Detroit and all the remnants of that 2004 championship team were traded or just left, Detroit's been fucking mediocre. Like the Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond experiment didn't work. They were in NBA purgatory. They finally have some excitement in Cade, and I think keeping a star and borderline all-star in Jerami Grant could have them closer to reaching the playoffs than a lot of people may think. If Cade can develop at a high level, whoever they add in the draft, Saddiq Bey's development, like this team could be really good sooner than a lot of people think. And I think the key for them reaching that success is keeping Jerami Grant and extending him. And I predict Detroit to do that. Now in terms of the draft, I'm going to predict Detroit to get the number 4 pick, and I think they will draft Jaden Ivey. Now there's no definitive number 1 pick. I know Jaden Ivey pops up as the number 1 pick in a lot of mock drafts, but I'm going to predict that he doesn't go 1, 2, or 3, and that he falls to number 4 Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham as a backcourt would be insanely fun to watch. I really hope that happens, to be honest. When you have a possible Rookie of the Year on your team, your rebuild has to be moving in the right direction, and that is the case with the Detroit Pistons. Cade Cunningham's playstyle is one that is very easy to build around. A 6'6" point guard with good strength, natural shot creation, and high potential as a passer. He definitely has the capability of being a franchise caliber player. Cade isn't the only promising prospect though, as Detroit also has Saddiq Bey, a versatile defender and a prolific outside shooter who's continuing to round out his offensive game and build his confidence, evident by his 50-point outburst towards the end of the season. Other prospects include Killian Hayes, who's trying to find his fit next to Cade, Isaiah Stewart, a bruising big man with a high motor, and Marvin Bagley, who was a revelation as a mid-season acquisition. Jerami Grant, though, is still this team's best player. With 1 year left on his contract and entering his prime, will the Pistons view him as an asset to net draft capital or a core member of this team's future? In the draft, the Pistons should have around a top 5 pick. I think the best two targets for them are Chet Holmgren and Jaden Ivey. Chet can come in and immediately provide higher defensive impact at the starting 5, while adding some spacing from the 5 position that Detroit desperately needs. Jaden Ivey could be the perfect partner in the backcourt for Cade, someone who's confident in their outside shot, wired to score, yet still a very heads-up playmaker. Regardless of what occurs this offseason, Detroit hasn't had a future this bright since the days leading up to the 04 championship run, and it's primarily due to the play and potential of Cade Cunningham. Let's see the heights that he can carry this franchise to over the next few years.